Scott Hall appeared on WCW Nitro on the 27th of May 1996 and he said those famous words.
You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Eric Bischoff has flat out denied that Scott Hall was portraying an invader from WWF, instead saying that Scott's motivations for declaring war was due to his poor treatment in WCW when he was employed there previously. Now, months later, this was hinted at again, in particular when Kevin Nash said about the old-timers leaving potholes in the road and leaving nothing for the newcomers, but Scott, referencing billionaire Ted, the Nacho Man, and Scheme Gene, names the WWF used to make fun of WCW, and Scott wanting to, quote, finish a war that WCW started, those things would make you think that Scott was indeed coming from WWF and acting on WWF's behalf, in the most kayfabe sense possible, by the way. Kevin Nash showed up 2 weeks later to join his buddy, and threats were made concerning a third man joining this team of outsiders. The boys wanted a match, a 3-on-3 encounter featuring WCW's best against this invading group, and Eric Bischoff said he'd speak to the committee to see what could be done. At the Great American Bash, Kevin and Scott were told by Eric Bischoff that the match was gonna go ahead, but something else was also brought up on this night that was quite important. The WWF were not impressed with how WCW had booked Kevin and Scott to look like WWF guys. Vince and company argued that WCW were not only misleading fans into thinking WWF had anything to do with this, but the World Wrestling Federation also felt that WCW were infringing their trademarks, as in real life gimmick infringement, brother. So Kevin and Scott had to announce on pay-per-view that they were in fact not hired by WWF and they did not represent WWF in any way. Still, the impact was already made and most fans were already clued up. Let's not pretend everyone thought this was Razor and Diesel getting sent on an infiltration mission from Vince McMahon. Bischoff got jackknifed on this night, and fans who paid attention to promos on Nitro would know that it was also on this night that Eric Bischoff joined the New World Order. He said he had a meeting with Hall and Nash after Great American Bash and he immediately realised who was gonna win this war, but Bischoff would continue to falsely represent WCW in the good fight right up until Roddy Piper showed up. Anyway, enough of all that. We have Hall, Nash and the mystery third man versus Lex Luger, Sting and Randy Savage. History gets made at Bash at the Beach and what they say is very true. The wrestling business gets completely changed after what happens in the Hostile Takeover match. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall walk down the ring without the third man. The outsiders get a good reaction when they get in the ring, but Mean Gene wants to find out what's going on. Okerlund wants to know where the third guy is, and Scott Hall says all Okerlund needs to know is that he's here and he's ready. Kevin Nash says the mystery third man is definitely in the arena, but the outsiders have enough to handle it right now. So Nash and Hall are going to take on 3 guys. Sting, Savage and Luger come down to the ring. Hall shoves Luger while Bobby Heenan says he trusts no one. Tony Schiavone could be the third guy for all he knows. And you know, if I didn't get this spoiled before I actually watched it all those years ago, I would have assumed either Macho, Luger or Sting would have been the third man, but needless to say, it was neither of these guys. Hall gets smacked across the face after throwing his toothpick into Luger's face. Lex wipes Scott out with a forearm smash and Nash gets whacked too. And already the outsiders have problems when Sting and Savage join in on the action. Luger's been knocked out though after taking some of that Stinger splash, so it's already became a 2-on-2 match. Maybe Bischoff wanted people to think Luger was the other guy, perhaps? The doctors run down and Luger gets put on a stretcher. The action's been stopped momentarily as Tony Schiavone says the outsiders are trying to divide and conquer. Team WCW's getting taken out one man at a time. Hall suckers Sting and the Icon gets smacked across the face and this just pisses Sting off. Hall gets taken down and his head gets banged on the mat over and over again. Sting performs an inverted atomic drop, Hall gets his face slammed on the canvas, and the Macho Man tries to keep the pace up after getting tagged in, but he gets caught out. Hall keeps the referee and Sting busy while Nash hits Snake Eyes on Randy, but Macho's not out yet. He floors Hall with a jumping clothesline and then the big man gets tagged in. Randy flat out gets overpowered. He tries to avoid Nash in the corner, but the former Big Daddy Cool Diesel stops Randy with a knee strike and a big elbow to the neck. Randy doesn't move out of the way quick enough during an elbow drop. That didn't look good. Savage immediately tags out and he tries to recover as Nash punishes Sting in the corner. Sting gets sent to the opposite side and he manages to dropkick Big Sexy. He tries a sunset flip though and Nash ends up grabbing Sting by the neck and throwing him on the canvas. Hall comes in and Sting gets kept in the outsider's corner. The bad guy performs his fallaway slam before Big Nash comes back in with a big boot. And something I need to point out is the commentary for this match. The commentary team are in a bit of a panic. They're really worried about the outsiders winning this match and they're dealing with a lot of anxiety over this mystery man who's yet to be revealed. The Stinger hits Nash with a dropkick to the knee and Macho wants tagged in. Nash gets the Hall first though and the babyface tag doesn't happen. Scott drops a few elbows and he slaps the Stinger around a bit. He then performs an abdominal stretch and Nash lends a hand from the apron. Nash then comes in illegally to continue the hold but Sting escapes with an eye rake. Again though, Sting gets cut off by Scott Hall before he can tag out. Sting finds himself in a sleeper hold before getting tossed out of the ring and Macho Man's now losing patience. He grabs a chair but Randy Anderson takes it away. Randy has no choice but to wait on the apron and he has to hope that Sting can tag out. The outsiders continue making quick tags and Nash gets a little frustrated that Sting keeps kicking out. The Stinger then starts fighting back after booting Big Sexy in the face and Sting finally manages to tag out after taking out both Nash and Hall. The Macho Man hits Scott Hall with a double axe handle. He throws the bad guy into Nash before tossing Hall out of the ring. We see another 2 double axe handles from the top rope, but Randy's momentum gets stopped with a low blow from Kevin Nash. The crowd then get on their feet and they cheer. It sounds like someone's walking down to the ring.
You're damn right he is! Go get him, Hulkster! Yeah, but whose side is he on? Go, what are you?
Hulk Hogan's in Daytona and he's marching down to the ring. Bobby Heenan famously wonders whose side Hogan's on, but the smart money says he's on Team WCW. Nash and Hall bail, they want no part of the Hulkster. And then it happens.
Hulk Hogan arrived! Hulk! What is he doing? My God! Is he?
There's absolute shock and disbelief when Hulk delivers a leg drop to Randy Savage, and it's confirmed that Hulk Hogan, do-gooder Hulk Hogan, American-made Hulk Hogan, has turned heel and joined Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Hulk high-fives the outsiders before hitting another leg drop on Savage, and Scott Hall counts a pinfall even though officially the match is ruled as a no contest. There's celebrations, hugs and handshakes. The ring starts filling up with garbage and this just shows us how much heat this heel turn got. And yes, Hulk wasn't the most loved guy in WCW as a babyface and he did toy around with turning heel with that absolute batshit crazy dark side nonsense in 1995. But the garbage in the ring shows us that fans weren't ready and weren't happy about Hogan turning heel. I think it's fucking fantastic and no matter how many times I've watched this, I'm always glued to the screen. Mean Gene wants Hogan to explain himself as more garbage gets tossed in the ring. Hogan says this is the future of wrestling. You can call this the new world order of wrestling. Hall and Nash came from an organization up north and there's no one who knows more about that promotion than Hulk Hogan. Hogan made WWF a monster. He made people rich up north, but when it all came to pass, Hogan got bigger than that organization. Billionaire Ted promised Hogan movies, millions of dollars and world caliber wrestling matches, but Hogan simply got bored. So Hogan got excited when Hall and Nash appeared. These guys are the new blood of WCW. And so the plan now is for Hogan, Hall and Nash to destroy World Championship Wrestling. Gene says all the crap in the ring represents Hogan's future if he wants to hang around guys like Hall and Nash. And Hulk says the crap in the ring actually represents the fans in Daytona. Hogan did everything right. He worked for the charities and he worked for the kids. But after the receptions that Hogan got, the fans can stick it because if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, the fans wouldn't be here. So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan and the New World Organization of Wrestling run wild on you? Tony Schiavone says, "We've seen the end of Hulkamania," and he closes the show by saying Hulk Hogan can go straight to hell.